It was an ordinary morning at the courthouse. The judge, Clara Thompson, sat in her chambers, reviewing the day's docket. A seasoned professional, she prided herself on maintaining impartiality, never letting personal feelings influence her decisions. The weight of justice was her life's work, a balance she had maintained through years of difficult cases. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to unfold. The courtroom buzzed as the next case was called. A man named Michael Hayes was accused of a serious crime, embezzlement from a non-profit organization he managed. The alleged crime had caused public outrage, as the stolen funds were meant to provide food and shelter for underprivileged children. Judge Thompson adjusted her glasses and looked at the defendant for the first time. Her gavel hovered in mid-air as her breath caught. The man standing before her was unmistakably Michael Hayes, her childhood best friend. Memories flooded back in an instant. Clara and Michael had grown up in the same small town. They were inseparable, spending countless hours exploring the woods, skipping rocks at the lake, and sharing dreams of their futures. Michael, always the ambitious one, had promised to change the world. Clara, the realist, had aimed for a quieter path. Their lives diverged after high school. Michael moved to the city, chasing opportunities, while Clara stayed behind to pursue her law degree. They hadn't seen or spoken to each other in over 20 years. For a moment, Clara was no longer in the courtroom. She was back in the past, standing by the old oak tree where they had carved their initials as kids. Her grip tightened on the gavel as she forced herself to return to the present. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind inside her, "you stand accused of embezzlement. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," Michael responded, his voice familiar yet strained. Clara studied him. He looked older, his face marked by lines of hardship. But there was something else in his eyes, something she couldn't quite place. Was it guilt, desperation, or something deeper, a plea for help? The prosecution presented its case with vigor. They painted Michael as a greedy manipulator who betrayed the very cause he claimed to support. Witnesses testified about discrepancies in financial records, lavish expenditures, and Michael's growing isolation from his colleagues. Clara listened carefully, her judicial mask firmly in place, though inside she felt like she was being pulled in two directions. When it was the defense's turn, Michael's attorney brought forth a different story. They argued that Michael had been framed by a disgruntled employee who had access to the accounts. A pivotal moment came when the defense presented a letter written by Michael to the board of the nonprofit, raising concerns about missing funds long before the accusations against him surfaced. The courtroom held its breath as the letter was read aloud. It was a heartfelt plea, filled with anguish over the organization's struggles. Clara's mind raced. Could Michael truly be innocent? The boy she once knew would never commit such a betrayal. But then again, people changed. Time changed them. During a recess, Clara retreated to her chambers. She couldn't escape the memories that kept surfacing. She pulled out a small box from her desk drawer, one she hadn't opened in years. Inside was a collection of childhood mementos, a faded photo of her and Michael grinning from ear to ear, an old friendship bracelet he had made for her, and a crumpled note that simply read, "Never give up on us." She sat there, staring at the items, questioning everything. As a judge, her duty was to the law, not to her past. But as a human being, she couldn't ignore the connection she felt to Michael, the man who had once been like family to her. The trial resumed, and the defense called Michael to the stand. Clara's heart pounded as he took his oath. "Mr. Hayes," the defense attorney began, "can you explain your actions during the time the funds went missing?" Michael's voice cracked as he spoke. "I know how this looks, but I swear I never took that money. I devoted my life to helping those kids because I was one of them. Growing up, we didn't have much, and I wanted to make sure no child had to go through what I did. If I made mistakes, it was in trusting the wrong people, not in betraying the cause. His words stirred something in Clara. She remembered how Michael's family had struggled, how he often went without lunch at school, and how he had vowed to make a difference one day. But could his past struggles justify his actions now? The prosecution attempted to dismantle his testimony, highlighting inconsistencies and questioning his credibility. Clara watched closely, weighing every word, every gesture. The case was far from clear-cut. As the trial neared its conclusion, a bombshell piece of evidence emerged. The defense presented newly uncovered surveillance footage showing the disgruntled employee accessing the financial records at odd hours. The footage cast serious doubt on the prosecution's case and shifted the courtroom's mood. Gasps echoed through the room as the implications sank in. Clara's gavel struck the bench. "Order in the court," she commanded, her voice firm. But inside, she felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that justice might prevail. In her closing instructions to the jury, Clara emphasized the importance of objectivity. "You must base your decisions solely on the evidence presented," she said, her voice unwavering. "Personal feelings have no place in this courtroom." The jury deliberated for hours. As Clara waited in her chambers, she couldn't shake the image of Michael as a boy, promising to always do the right thing. She wondered if life had simply dealt him a bad hand, or if he had indeed strayed from the path they once dreamed of. Finally, the jury returned. Clara's heart raced as the foreperson stood to deliver the verdict. On the charge of embezzlement, the foreperson announced, "We find the defendant not guilty." Relief washed over Michael's face as murmurs spread through the courtroom, the weight of the judge's decision lifting a burden he had carried for far too long. Clara, seated among the onlookers, maintained her composed demeanor, her years as a respected judge training her to keep her emotions in check. Yet inside, a tidal wave of feelings surged relief that justice had prevailed, pride in the man Michael had the potential to become again, and an overwhelming sense of closure for a chapter that had haunted both of their lives. Their shared history, once a source of pain and regret, now felt like a bridge to a hopeful future. For Clara, this was more than a verdict. It was a turning point. After the trial, Clara stepped down from the bench, something she rarely did. As the courtroom emptied, she approached Michael. "You've been through hell," she said softly. But the truth came out in the end. Michael looked at her, his eyes glistening. "I didn't think you'd remember me," he said. "But seeing you up there gave me hope. You were always the one who believed in justice." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. Finally, Clara spoke. "Don't waste this second chance, Michael. Make it count." As Michael left the courthouse, Clara watched him disappear into the bustling crowd, a blend of emotions swirling within her. She felt hope for the man who had once been her closest companion, tempered by the uncertainty of whether he could rebuild his life after such a harrowing ordeal. Memories of their shared childhood surfaced Michael's boundless optimism, his unyielding determination to rise above adversity. She held on to the belief that those qualities still burned within him, waiting to reignite. Clara whispered a silent prayer that this second chance would lead him back to the path of integrity and purpose, just as she remembered. Their story became a powerful reminder that the past is never truly gone, and that even in the most unexpected places, humanity can find a way to heal.